Hello and welcome to another review of Drones Visual. To tell you the truth, I'm a bit frustrated because I was supposed to finish this review over a week ago, but as some of you may have noticed, I have been experiencing some issues with my DVR that I used to record the FPV feed for my quads. I went ahead and ordered a new one, but during the Chinese New Year all shops closed for a while, so I'm still waiting for it. Provided other reviewers have already released videos about this mini FPV racer, I'm gonna go ahead and publish my review as it is today, and later when I get my DVR, I'll release a follow-up video. You may have already seen that I have over here the tiny Eachine Chaser 88, which is one of the latest brushless mini quads from Eachine. As you can see, they keep getting smaller and smaller. I was really looking forward to testing this little fellow, well, because despite being so tiny, it does come equipped with brushless motors. I think the prototype I have over here, it might be, the sample I have here might be a prototype because it came with an unlabeled box and an unlabeled battery. But okay, that should be no problem at all. So let's then get started with the review. As I was saying, I got an unlabeled battery with it. It's certainly a 2S battery, but I can tell you 100% about the capacity of this battery. It could be somewhere from 400 milliamps to 500 milliamps, something like this. You may have also already noticed that the battery comes with an XT30 connector. Keep this in mind when purchasing, if you're going to purchase new batteries for this little fellow. The charger for the battery is a real simple USB charger, but I'll be probably using my own charger. Then again, it's good to have this one if you're planning to use a power bank or something like that to charge a battery when you're out there on the field. And finally, here we have the tiny Eachine Chaser 88, this mini FPV racer. As you can see, this little fellow comes equipped with 1103 10,000 kV motors, and I feel positive about them already as they are manufactured by Racerstar. We get then these little tiny props that you can see over here. They come in two colors, purple and orange. There is an extra set of props that comes included that I forgot to show you before, but they're basically they also came with the box. The Chaser 88 comes equipped with 25 milliwatt 40 channel FPV transmitter, which is equipped with a circular polarized clover antenna, and the transmitter is basically integrated with the 800 TVL CMOS camera. The USB plug in the flight controller can be easily accessed here from the rear section. And something simple yet very effective that this little quad comes equipped with is this sort of arc here that protects the tiny FPV antenna and the camera. This arc will be very useful to protect the receiver that I will place in this quad later, and I will show you more about that receiver a little bit later in the video. But basically I like it a lot. It's a very simple thing yet very effective. The camera mount itself has tiny rubbery spacers there separating it from the other components of the quad. This should shield it from vibration coming from the moving parts of the quad, basically the motors. So I think it's a nice idea to have those there. Then on the other section of the Chaser 88, you'll find basically the LED strip with a total of 6 LED lights, 3 on each side. And of course, then if you can see here in the middle, we have the tiny buzzer, which is nice for such a little quad to have a buzzer. You will see the same kind of rubbery spacers separating other components of the quad. I personally like this. They should indeed shield those components from some vibration caused by the movement of the motors. Then here on the side, if we move to the other side, we will see a sort of a connector. That connector here is for the receiver, and it has rewired signal, power and ground, and I will show you a little bit in the, later in the video how easy it is to set up this quad with an iRangeX transmitter. Now, protecting the carbon fiber plate or the frame basically of the quad, if we look at here at the bottom, we have a foam which is actually really nice, as it allows us to access these 4 screws here in the center. That's kind of nice, but on the other hand, it blocks us from accessing the screws holding the arc that protects the FPV camera in place. So for example, if the arc gets damaged, basically you need to scrap that sort of foam there to access the screws. I'll show you a little bit about that later. If we measure the frame from arm to arm, we can see that it's around 80.7 millimeters. Yeah. And then if we measure it diagonally from motor to motor, we get around 107 millimeters. The frame itself is around 3 millimeters thick, and of course I'm excluding here the foam that is protecting that base. As I was saying before, to access the screws that hold the arc protecting the FPV camera and the openings of the battery strap, you might need to actually cannibalize a little bit the foam here at the bottom of the quad. Here you can see that I had to basically remove part of the foam to access the area where you could potentially place a strap, but it's not 100% sure that that would be possible. Here we have the tiny little FPV camera with this 3D printed base. It only weighs around 8.7 grams, and the downside of this camera is that, well, you cannot really change much the angle, so that's gonna be a little bit of a drawback. Once we remove the cam, we expose the flight controller, which is a tiny PIKO BLX based on an F3 flight controller. You can connect it to your computer and use Betaflight to configure it further. Under the flight controller, we can see here the wires going all the way to the ESCs. These 4 wires that you can see here. They are basically connected to the 6 amps PL Heli-S 4-in-1 ESC board that comes with this little fellow. If we move a little bit to the left, we will see the positive and negative wire that supply the tiny little FPV camera and the transmitter combo. On this side, you can see the wires that go to the buzzer that I showed you a while ago between the LED lights. And on the right side, there is a positive and a ground wire that connect into the VBAT battery voltage sensing port for basically battery voltage sensing. And then there are 3 wires that you can see here on the side for the receiver. If you recall, I showed you the connector for the receiver that is right over here. Let me show you this one here. And then to the right, we have other wires that seem to connect to the LED strip. These ones here. Now let me show you real quick the receiver I'm going to be using. Basically, I decided to use the little tiny iRangeX A8S receiver, which is a little bit like the FlySky. I mean, not a little bit, but the same basically. And it's really easy to set up via iBus, and I would like to show you how to do that. Almost plug and play, I would say. First, you need to connect the receiver to the available connector. Once you have connected the receiver, we need to pair it. I mean, I'll be using here this for the example, the iRange transmitter. There is a very tiny bind button in the receiver, so use it when binding your transmitter. And once you're done, believe it or not, this quad is almost ready to fly. As you can see, even without actually hooking it to a PC or anything, I can unlock the motors and pretty much fly. The only issue would be that, well, you need to fix the switches. By default, most of the Aux channels or switches for this transmitter are off, and only the VR switches are active. So for example, the flight modes or the buzzer might be assigned to one of those VR knobs that you can see here at the top, and of course I don't think you really want that. If we take a look at the menu of the iRangeX transmitter, we will see, let me navigate here to the Aux section, we will see that all the Aux switches have been basically disabled by default. This means we can only select between VRA and VRB, which are the knobs on the top that I showed you before. I don't think this is a good idea to use those, but as you can see, we don't get any other option here, or we don't get to activate other Aux channels in this menu. So we need to go and open the so-called secret menu. I mean, it's not really secret, but I guess most of you know about it. But I guess back in the days it was called the secret menu, which is the same in the FlySky transmitter. So let's go ahead and do that. To enter the so-called secret menu, we hold both sticks downwards and to the left while we power on the transmitter. Once we are in the secret menu, we can then go down to the section that says Aux switches, which is right under the key test. As you can see, by some reason, all of the Aux channels are disabled, so we need to go ahead and enable them. And I mean, you only need to use 2, but I would actually enable them all just so you don't have to come back here again later. Once you have enabled the aux channels that you would like to use for your flight modes and the buzzer, remember to press and hold the cancel button just in case. Otherwise, if you just exit, perhaps your changes won't be saved, because this transmitter has this sort of weird little function that you need to sort of hold and press cancel to actually save your settings. But I'm sure most of you are aware of this, so I'm pretty sure you're not gonna have problems with this. But anyways, I have here activated the aux channels that I need, and I'm gonna exit now and return to the previous menu. So once we're done, we can return to the standard menu, the non-secret one. We need to then navigate once more to the aux channel section. In the aux channel section, the channels were missing before, but now will magically show up. In my case, I will use channel 5 for the flight modes, and I will assign channel 5 to the switch SWC switch, which is a 3-position switch. You can of course decide by yourself if you would like to assign that channel to a different switch, but I think this is the most common setup for this transmitter, so I'll go ahead and do that. And I will assign channel 6, which is going to be the buzzer, to the SWD switch, which is the switch basically next to the SWC switch. The only thing left is to try the switches to see whether they are working properly. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so now we know that everything is pretty much working as it should. Let me show you real quick how things look like when you connect the flight controller to Betaflight. We open Betaflight here, and we can immediately see the receiver down here in UR3 where it says serial RX. Then if we move to the next window, let me go here to the next section, and we scroll down a little bit, you will notice that the protocol I'm using to communicate with the flight controller is iPOS with the tiny iRangeX receiver. And then if we move a little bit here to the top, you will notice that it says here D-Shot 600 protocol, and is active by default. I think that's nice. The motors are set up not to spin when armed. I will leave it like that, but you can change that according to your preferences. Now the second option here will allow you to disarm the motors if you're using an aux channel or something like that to do that. That's your choice. The gyro and the PID loop frequencies were by default at these values, but you may have noticed that the CPU load is at 21%, and I'm not sure whether that's fine like this or I should be concerned. It's a good question. Let's then move to the PID section. I think these are the stock PIDs. I mean, I was doing some changes here before, but I think I did not save them. So in any case, if these are not the default ones, they should be probably close to being the default ones. Nah, I think they are the default ones. Let's check the receiver section. Here you can make sure that all your channels are working as they should, although I have a pretty good feeling that mine should be sort of alright. Just remember that if you can get your values exactly at 1000 or 1500 here, you can go to your transmitter menu and go to the section called Subtrim. And once there, you can select the channel that is, let's say, centered on 1500, and basically apply some subtrim to center it. Then also, if you're getting a little bit of that flickering between, 1499 or 1500 or something like that, you could apply some deadband to cancel that out. So, and here, of course, you can also test whether your aux channels are working properly, all the switches that you have assigned. Although in my case, I already sort of knew that they were working properly. That's why I say that the little iRange receiver is almost plug and play. But of course, you need to always come here to double check that all your channels are centered and everything like that. The next section is the so-called aux channels here, and you can decide pretty much what your aux channels do. This is how it was by default. If you're good with this, then perfect. If not, then well, you can go ahead and add the flying mode or remove one. I, for example, won't use probably air mode, so I'll remove that one and add horizon. That I'll probably be using more. But this is all up to you, so you're free here to customize it any way you want. Really nice and simple. And you can make your decisions. You can see that the buzzer is here also configured. So okay, let's then move ahead. I think I'm good to go with this. The next step are the motors, you know, to calibrate ESCs and so on. I'm not gonna spend any time here. Let's finally just go ahead and check the version of the firmware in the flight controller. Let's go here. Oh yeah, the LEDs, forgot to mention about this. Of course, you can also configure your LEDs here. And then the version of the firmware is basically Betaflight 3.1, which is really nice actually. Okay, then the next thing I would like to show you is how I secure the receiver. I made use of the arc protecting the FPV camera and the transmitter, which I find actually great to secure the receiver in place. Notice that I use some sticky pad. This will provide some cushioning and also will make the receiver sort of stay firm in place. Maybe some of you don't like this, but that's how I did it. Initially, right out of the box, the battery comes secure with these sort of elastic bands. Before flying, I added some Velcro under the battery, and I used some other elastic bands that I had over there to secure the battery. You may try to use some straps, but it's gonna be hard to actually place them in this quad. The quad with the receiver that I'm using, the iRange, weighs around 63 grams. And here you can sort of contrast it with the larger Wakira Rodeo 110 that I reviewed some time ago. So okay, then let's go outside and do some initial tests flying line of sight to see how it does. Again, these are sort of the stock settings in terms of power. Actually, this quad feels really nice. It displays actually great acceleration. So this little devil is definitely going to be fast. You, however, probably may have noticed that at lower throttles we get a lot of oscillations, just like with the Eachine Falcon 120. This could be tune related. You might need to try to get rid of this by changing your PID settings a bit and then try once more. Nonetheless, with the stock settings it feels really agile, but something definitely needs some adjustment because it's not perfect. It's definitely not perfect. I find it a little bit hard to fly tiny little quads like these ones on line of sight. So I will take a few turns around here and then I'll move to another spot to fly a little bit more FPV style. You may have noticed that sometimes if I go full throttle, the buzzer starts to beep, and actually I'm using a 3S battery with a discharge rate of 75C. So okay. With the 2S battery, well, guess what, I only got around 3 minutes of flying time, so I'm not gonna be using the stock battery. Although I'm not sure if I should advise you to use the 3S battery. Not sure actually if it's gonna be too much for this little fellow, but in any case, at my own here risk, I'm using a Taru 450, is it 450 the one I have? Yeah, I think it's a 450 milliamps 75C LiPo battery. So that was my choice. But then again, you know, I would probably try it first with the stock battery, see whether you like it. Like I said, maybe I got some kind of prototype battery that it didn't last so long, but with the stock 2S battery, I only got around 3 minutes of flying time. Okay, let's give it a try flying FPV style, see how it performs. And now remember that I mentioned that at the beginning of the video that I had some issues with my DVR recorder. Well, I was very pissed when I saw the footage from the micro SD card, as it basically just recorded the takeoff and some other fragments of the flight, but that was it. I already ordered a new DVR, way better, which is on the way, but this is the reason that I could not show you much of the FPV flight. However, other reviewers have already released footage of this tiny little fellow, so I encourage you to go out there and check their videos as well. I show you a fragment of the DVR, what the DVR recorded, and basically just a few seconds and then it went black. As soon as the quad would approach it, it would then show a little bit more and so on, but it was really horrible. But anyways, I'll make sure that does not happen again. I must say the FPV camera of this little quad is great compared to the Wakira Rodeo 110. I can see everything crystal clear. I'm having basically no problems whatsoever with the video signal. For example, when flying the Vaquero Rodeo 110, my video signal starts to get a little bit snowy already around 20 meters beyond that tree that you can see over there. But with this little fellow, it's still very good. That might of course be the antenna, as this little fellow has a better antenna. Please just keep in mind that I'm flying here still at a close range, so I'm not saying that the range is super awesome. I'm just saying that compared to the Rodeo 110, it feels better, as you know, I'm flying beyond that tree and I'm getting no problems with the signal whatsoever. However, with the Rodeo 110, I noticed that when flying around that tree and maybe going like 20 meters beyond the tree, I was already getting not such a good signal. The little devil is indeed agile and very fast, although I'm noticing some odd behavior at times when applying yaw and roll when turning. It seems that it vibrates or shakes. I wonder whether this will go away, for example, if I fly acro. Part of it could be the lack of tuning as well. I mean, part of it could be that the battery is moving a little bit and I need to maybe double check that. But there is certainly some weird shakiness when taking turns, and you may hear it through the sound of the motors as well. Not sure whether beginners are going to care much about this, but definitely advanced pilots will notice this right away. But I guess then they could apply some changes to the PIDs and do some other adjustments. If we focus on agility, speed and thrust, I think you're gonna like it a lot, taking aside the imperfections that I have mentioned, of course. And so far at this range, I'm really liking the FPV video feed, but in the next videos I will take it further, you know, and see how the FPV signal behaves. I'm using right now the Eachine goggles too, and the image quality is pretty awesome, so I like it. Now regarding the tuning, I'm sure most advanced pilots will perform some changes in the PIDs, but I think beginners could fly it with these settings. I mean more beginners, sort of intermediates. I mean not beginners like you're just beginning to fly, because otherwise this quad is going to be a little bit hard to fly, but I mean beginners that have been flying for a while already and have some experience with FPV racers. I can almost place myself in that category actually. So okay, this will be all for today. I want to once more apologize because of my DVR issues. I mean, these things happen. There's nothing I can do about it. I will try to fix it for the next time. Let's go ahead now and go to the conclusions. Let me list first the things that I liked about this little fellow. It comes equipped with a nice brushless motors from Racerstar. It comes with an F3 base flight controller running Betaflight 3.1. The FPV transmitter and the camera work like charm, you know, at this range. Of course, I will try that further later, and deliver a nice video transmission and video quality. I also like the receiver setup because it's gonna be really easy for beginners. I mean, it's almost plug and play with the iRangeX. You can pretty much plug it and you're good to go. I think that's pretty nice. But of course, if you're using a different receiver, it might be a little bit trickier, but not really. What I did not like so much was that this little fellow is kind of power hungry. With the 2S stock battery, I barely got 3 minutes of flying time, which is kind of not much. I'm not sure whether this is going to be the standard battery later, but at least with the one I got, didn't get much flying time. The means to secure the battery are not very good also, just some elastic straps. That's probably not going to hold the battery in case of a crash. The foam under the quad should give us access to the screws holding the arc, protecting the FPV camera and the transmitter as well. Another issue I could point out are those irregular weird vibrations that I noticed when taking curves. It did feel strange at times, but I placed question mark as to whether this could be solved after doing some PID tuning or fixing the battery better. I'm not quite sure. So overall, it can be a fun mini quad to fly if you're willing to sort of look by those imperfections that I have named before. And I forgot also, you cannot really adjust much the angle of the camera. So that's also kind of something that is going to trouble many of you. So okay, that's it for now. If you find my review useful in any way, please give me a thumbs up and drop me some comments. If you'd like to add something or correct anything stupid that I may have said, just go ahead. We all learn from this and benefit. And then if you're interested in the topic of drones and quadcopters and all this, and would like to get the latest news directly from China, do not hesitate and subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you all in my next video.